From a true heavyweight legend with knockout power to the sport's biggest pay-per-view fighter, these are the fighters that have been snubbed from the UFC Hall of Fame. It's no secret the UFC's catapulted fighters to worldwide fame and superstardom. But the UFC Hall of Fame is the cream of the crop. In terms of MMA awards and recognition, it's dedicated to honoring the greatest fighters of all time for their outstanding contributions to the sport. Established by UFC President Dana White in November of 2003, the Hall of Fame is comprised of 4 wings: the Modern Wing, the Pioneers Wing, the Fight Wing, and the Contributors Wing. The UFC Hall of Fame prides itself on recognizing the best talent not only in the octagon, but also outside of it. Every year, individuals are inducted who've made significant contributions to the sport. The induction ceremony is held annually during International Fight Week in Las Vegas. The ceremony includes a special Hall of Fame dinner, award show, and honors the UFC's legendary fighters and contributors. Despite this, there's been a few snubs over the years that have shocked fighters and fans alike. Case in point, old school UFC heavyweight sensation Tank Abbott. Tank's one of the most notorious MMA fighters of all time. Growing up in Huntington Beach, California, Tank was a solid wrestler before moving on to boxing. After engaging in some brutal street fights, Tank crossed over to MMA and was one of the original mixed martial arts stars of the 90s, making his UFC debut early on in the promotion's rise to fame at UFC 6, Clash of the Titans. Here Tank would square off against fellow heavyweight monster John Matawa. Tank quickly finished the fight with an onslaught of ferocious punches that knocked out Matawa. 20 seconds into the first round, Tank was quickly considered the equivalent to the baddest man on the planet and boxing legend, Iron Mike Tyson. Tank went on to deliver some of the greatest heavyweight fights in UFC history. However, despite his firm position as one of the greatest stars to ever grace the octagon, he's never been inducted into the Hall of Fame. This could be due to a string of losses toward the end of his career.
The charm! Jimbo Slice wins the main event! Wow! Tank went out on a shield, face down.
But regardless of those losses, his place as a hard-hitting pioneer should have granted him admission to the Hall of Fame. Even though Dana White repeatedly snubbed Tank from the Hall of Fame consideration, he remains one of UFC's most memorable figures, and his popularity among fans remains strong, with many believing that he deserves to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. One would think that working your way to a championship belt is enough to put your name in the running for a spot in the Hall of Fame. But some champions aren't so lucky. Frank Mir's one of the UFC's greatest stars and most decorated fighters, with a long and storied career. Mir's background as an amateur wrestler and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner saw him win the Nevada State Wrestling Championship in 1998 and put him in the crosshairs of MMA promotions worldwide. He made his UFC debut back in 2001 at UFC 34 and quickly established himself as a top heavyweight contender. Since then, he's gone on to become the UFC heavyweight champion, not once, but twice. His career's been filled with highlight reel finishes and incredible comebacks, like his famous submission of Tim Sylvia, which crowned him the heavyweight champion for the first time in 2004. Despite a string of memorable victories, Mir's never been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and many believe it's thanks to a string of losses in fights that he should have won. The fights were hyped up massively, yet he failed to live up to the hype and suffered some devastating losses. His loss to Junior Dos Santos at UFC 146.
Junior Dos looks like it caught him on the cheekbone. Hammer fist there, and Herb Dean had seen enough. And here again, and hammer fists him.
Marked the beginning of 5 losses that left fans thinking that Mir's heyday was well behind him. But this shouldn't erase the memory of what this incredible fighter achieved early in his career. Mir should be remembered for the amazing fights he delivered, a fact that Dana should recognize regardless of his losses. Frank remains an iconic fighter and deserves to be added to the Hall of Fame. While heavyweight brutes like Mir have been known to deliver spectacular fights, fighters in lighter divisions are just as entertaining. Fighters lighter in weight can bring more speed to a fight, and their high levels of endurance often allow for longer fights. But putting on an incredible show doesn't guarantee fighters a place in the Hall of Fame. Just ask Frank Shamrock. Shamrock's one of the UFC's original stars and is widely considered to be one of the greatest mixed martial artists in the history of the sport. Shamrock fought in middleweight and light heavyweight weight classes and is the first person to hold the UFC middleweight championship belt. A well-versed and multi-skilled fighter, Shamrock had a tendency to showcase brutal knockouts and super impressive submissions. Over time, he became a legend in the sport, but has never been inducted into the Hall of Fame. Considering he never suffered a single loss during his time in the UFC, fans are flabbergasted as to why he's yet to be inducted. Many believe this could be due to personal issues with Dana White. It's no secret that Shamrock and White have a history of disagreements, and their highly publicized back-and-forth arguments have been plastered all over Twitter. They've been feuding for years, and when a fan on Twitter asked Shamrock what would make him come out of retirement, Frank replied simply, "Dana White." The whole thing went viral, and the implication was clear. Shamrock wanted a piece of White, and it ruffled Dana's feathers. Another reason Frank may have been snubbed from the Hall of Fame is due to his brother, Ken Shamrock, who's also beefed with Dana in the past. After Ken was released from his UFC contract in 2007, he sued the UFC for breach of contract, but lost his case, and ended up owing Dana a lot of money. Dana even called Ken out in a video interview saying, "Let's not forget that Ken Shamrock tried to sue us about his contract. Ken Shamrock owes me $175,000, and I'm coming for it, Ken. I'm coming for it, you piece of shit."
Let's not forget that Ken Shamrock tried to sue us. That he said that his contract, Ken Shamrock owes me $175,000. And I'm coming for it, Ken.
Ouch. Harsh words from the boss man there. So considering all of the drama with the Shamrock brothers, it's safe to say that Frank won't be getting inducted anytime soon. And to be honest, I don't think he cares. When speaking with Takedown Wrestling Media, Frank said, "I would trade nothing for that Hall of Fame. And not that I don't think it's interesting or the people in it aren't deserving, but I don't think it's the real Hall of Fame because I don't think we're a real sport. When we are a real sport, then people most deserving of that accolade will most likely be in there. So whether you're an OG legend of the sport or considered one of the greatest fighters to ever live, no one's guaranteed a spot in the Hall of Fame. Even the world's biggest MMA star and pay-per-view record holder, Conor McGregor, hasn't been inducted. While many believe he'll get his moment one day, others believe his unfavorable reputation has thwarted his chances. Maybe a fighter needs to have a perfect record, earn the company massive amounts of money, and never feuded with the president to secure themselves a spot. Considering Dana's track record for arguments and feuds with his fighters, it seems like a challenging mission to accomplish. So, from a true heavyweight legend with knockout power to the sport's biggest pay-per-view fighter, those were fighters that have been snubbed from the UFC Hall of Fame.